Avanad. I specialize in D365 and also the Power Platform. I'd like to introduce our lovely panel today. Chris.
Hey folks, my name is Chris Huntingford. I'm Avanad's Global Power Apps and Automate Lead, and I do loads of stuff on Power Platform evangelism. So awesome to meet you, and as they say in the States, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name's Andrew Bibby. I'm Customer Success Director at Proximo 3. My background is actually many years ago now as a developer, so I've kind of been through the change from doing very techie stuff into solution architecture and now no code and low code. So that's the perspective I'm going to bring, hopefully.
And hi, I'm Alison Mulligan. I am the Partner Director at Proximo 3. I've been working with Dynamics 365 since 2015 and then progressed into Power Platform from very much a low and no code perspective in 2019.
Awesome. So I want to basically just take a step back and just do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is going to be recorded. This is being recorded as we speak. And just some housekeeping. So if we go to the
Just to make sure we behave ourselves.
Just to make sure you behave yourselves, because we all know you. So if you'd like to, if you're in the room, because this, we have people in the room, we have people virtual as well. All questions need to be on the Teams meeting. So if you would like to ask questions, please join the Teams meeting. Please also participate. This is an interactive session. We want to hear from you. And also, please be kind. This should be a safe space for everyone to participate. The event code of conduct is posted in the chat for reference. So as I said again, be kind. There's space for pro and low code developers, and you just want to have a conversation. That's it. Basically, let's kick off this conversation just by talking about where we are in the world today. So there are a couple of things, two things. One, we all know about this great developer shortage, and we also know that it's been a huge adoption in Power Platform. But even with the huge adoption, like, we still have questions. One of those questions we typically get asked is, when do we use the Power Platform? Anyone?
I'll take it.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. Like, there's literally no reason not to use it. I mean, if you think about it, Microsoft have given us this really cool toolkit of what I call pre-built digital bricks. Okay, so you don't need to go and write all those digital bricks from scratch using code. You can use these already created for you. So as an ex-dev, I'm better now. Okay, no, but really, I used to actually write code. I still do a little bit, but not as much because I've got the tools in the platform. But what I've found is that actually I can build stuff really quickly to solve business problems that are really, really scalable, right? Well, the solutions are scalable, not the problems, but you get what I'm saying. So we've got these pre-built digital bricks. The thing that I often find, though, is that I run into scenarios where I don't have the tools. And I'll talk about that later. But how about you, Andy and Alison? What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really common in organizations for people to reach for Excel and maybe even access to build solutions quite quickly. But they're outside of any control. You know, they're not backed up. There's no kind of knowledge about the data that's in those systems and control over that data as well. And so if you're using the Power Platform tools, you can be as quick at building applications as you might be in, say, Access, but you have that control and IT governance in place as well. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest benefit to me has been, as you mentioned, people are often using Excel or Access or other forms of data, and that typically tends to be like a solution that one person is using, which many people can benefit from. So I think the biggest benefit for me personally has been able to have a more collaborative approach to how we automate things or how you get things done, right?
Do you have any experiences where you have a team where they are very, very pro dev, right? They're really into their code. And to be honest, like Chris, I too am an ex-developer. You know, I too have I'm better now.
I'm gonna call so much trouble.
But there are situations where you do have a team of developers, and for really simple problems, they go straight to the code. How we experience that, and how can we guide them to see the light?
So one thing I found when I kind of moved from being a straight .NET developer into using Power Apps, well, Dynamics 365, but yeah, there's semantics, is that I could just achieve so much more quickly than I could before. I was always building a data layer, a security layer, a user interface, business logic, but I would have to code all that stuff. And then I moved into what we call model-driven apps through Power Apps, and so much of that stuff is already there. It's saving me so much time, and I can build an application in days rather than weeks before, much less testing, works on any device, all this kind of thing. So it's the productivity gains that you get. You can still write code, and sometimes you do still need to write code, but it's for the kind of 20, 30% of scenarios, maybe less than that, depending on your requirements. But that's what really won me over. I'm not just doing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I want to throw a spanner into the wheel, I guess, is that when I build stuff, I always treat Power Platform like Lego. So you kind of tip the box of Lego out in the rug. I know some of you are nerds. I know you play Lego. It's cool to admit it, right? I play Lego. And like when you're building out your solutions, you want to build out your fairy princess pirate ship or your castle or whatever it is you're making. And you start snapping these bricks together. And then all of a sudden you stumble across a scenario where you're like, oh no, I'm missing a digital brick or a brick for the Lego box. And you can't go and phone Lego and say, hey, I need you to make this brick for me because I'm making a fairy princess pirate ship. What you do is you go to your friendly neighborhood developers in the Power Platform and you give them loads of pizza, loads of fizzy drinks, and beg, and you say, please, can you make me this digital brick? So the role of a developer actually, I think, is changing. So to answer your question, I think a team of developers is really good. But as a coder, I hated building front-end stuff. Like my worst thing was building forms. I still hate building forms. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to leave that to the people that know what they're doing from a UX perspective.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hand off the procode stuff to the people that know what they're doing, and I'm going to handle data and process. And that's what brings in like a fusion team approach. So yeah, a team of devs is good. A team of different people with different mindsets is way better.
I'm going to basically extend it a little bit because I know that you are Mr. Power Apps.
Platform.
Well, you really love your Power Apps, whereas I'm less Power Apps and I'm more Power Virtual Agent. And to be honest, even though I'm more Power Virtual Agent, which is basically a low-code chatbot or low-code bot solution, rather, for those who might not know, it's the same thing. Like you will come across situations where you actually need to build and extend based on your customer's requirements, and Power Virtual Agent is not going to cut it. And then you do need your team of developers,
Yep.
but you can plug it in. It is digital bricks, no matter which component or module of the Power Platform that you're using. And that's exactly what I want to point out. Now, we do have some questions from our lovely moderators. I'm going to start with Joe.
Yes, we've got a really great question in the chat regarding dynamics. Or I'll just start again. So we have a great question in the chat about dynamics. So how important would you say is having dynamics experience when it comes to building low code, pro code, no code solutions?
I could start. So my background is in Dynamics and Power Platform's kind of grown out. I like to think of it as Dynamics is the original, like the Godfather. Power Platform is kind of, the natural evolution. But yeah, Dynamics is best, obviously. But I wouldn't say that you need Dynamics background. And I would also say go further than that. There is an entire community out there, normally known as Power Addicts on Twitter, who have no background with Dynamics, for example. And yes, Power Addicts. I wasn't just, no, I won't.
I know what you're going to say.
It wasn't, yeah. So there's a whole community of people that have no background with Dynamics 365. They may be from a SharePoint background or using Excel or just, looking for tools to be productive quickly. So I would say you don't need any Dynamics background. I think it is helpful if you're building particularly model-driven apps to have a background in Dynamics because most of that stuff applies. But you can build Canvas apps. You can just do Power Automate. You can just do Power Virtual Agents, Power BI. It's very common for people to not have any background in Dynamics, I would say.
I want to take it a step further because yes, you could start off with Canvas apps, and most people would start off with Canvas apps. But ultimately, what you'll find happening is you will eventually need to start using a Dynamics 365 app. Because of the scale, because of the growth of the app. And what I see is a lot of people, they try to keep it into just the Canvas app because they're afraid of, so for some reason, the concept of a model driven app or the concept of a Dynamics 365 app. It's like the big boy. But it's like shouldn't be afraid. Just embrace it, learn about it, because there's so much stuff. There's so much investment in the, in those apps, right?
I mean, I have an opinion on that because I see Canvas.
What? You have an opinion?
I have an opinion on that.
Stop.
I know, right? Canvas apps I see very much as being you would use a Canvas app to do one specific thing,
Yes.
right? Model driven apps I see very much more. And like for anybody who doesn't know me, I don't code. I don't know anything about coding. And realistically, most of the stuff I've done in Power Platform have been nothing to do with D365, right? But the Canvas apps, I think, are you would use it for something specific. A model-driven app is connected to your data, so probably for most things that you want to do is a better way to go, depending on what you're trying to do. But to go back to the original question, do you need to know Dynamics to do Power Platform? Absolutely not. There's plenty of stuff you can do. The amount of things that I've automated in my business or for people I know that have nothing to do with connecting to Dynamics at all. So I'd say anyone can use
I
it.
agree, to an extent.
Okay.
But this I'm just gonna leave it there. But I agree to an extent. I agree that you don't need to know Dynamics to do Power Platform. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's useful. But
It's useful, but you don't need to. Where you need Dynamics is if you notice that the apps that you're building are scaling and are growing and are becoming more important to the business. One-on-one apps, it's fine. But it's as the growth and the importance grows, you probably now start to want to investigate.
I'm going to agree to disagree.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
with
we
you.
could spend a lot of time on this. Can I just do a definition for people that are not familiar with Power Platform? When we talk about model-driven apps and Canvas apps, these are the two types of apps. I guess there's portals as well, but that's a separate thing now, as of yesterday. So we have these two different types of apps. A model-driven app is where you start with your data model. You have these different types of data that you need to store, and they're related to each other. And you want to build a user interface on top of that, business logic. Have a system that is probably going to be a line of business system that does, quite a lot of functionality. A Canvas app is called a Canvas app because you start from a blank canvas. Thank you, Microsoft.
wow.
And you start with absolutely nothing if you want to. You don't have to. You've got templates and things like that you can use, but you're entirely, it's up to you what data sources you use. If you want to use SQL or Oracle or Access or Excel, you absolutely can do that. And then you build your user interface on top of that. And you have much more control over the user interface as well. So there's two different types of apps you can build, at least at the moment.
But the thing to remember though, and I know we'll get to this, but it's one last little tidbit of hopeful awesomeness is that Dynamics 365 customer engagement, it's one of the products that Microsoft released with business applications, is a Power App. It is made of the same digital bricks that you get in the rest of the platform. Power Platform, it's not Power App form, Power Platform. It's a full list of tools. I don't know why we all fixate on apps so much. I mean, I get it, but
I don't. I use Power Automate more than anything else.
Yeah.
I use PVA.
it's because it's the thing you can see. But I think the Dynamics question is a good one. But in my opinion, I know loads of people in M365 who only do SharePoint and Canvas apps who are really, really strong. I know some people in Azure. There's a question in here about is Power Platform a backend structure? Absolutely, right? There are lots of people that work in Azure that do integration, data platform modernization, that work in Power Platform. So don't think it's Dynamics, please. Dynamics is but one small piece of it.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
a platform.
Yes.
That's true. I do want to take it back
Yeah.
though, and I'm gonna throw it out to Viv.
Yeah.
Vivian, you've got a question?
Yeah, there is a question on how to get started with Power Apps. How is it that you motivate people to move away from their homey Excel sheets?
Or access databases, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think people learn, well, lots of people learn through seeing the benefits. Excuse me. So there's lots of material out there that will help you learn about Power Apps. In particular, Microsoft Learn has a lot of great content on learning Power Platform all in, and also Azure and other things like that. So that's a great place to start. There's loads of YouTube channels out there. In particular, people like Matt Collins-Jones has a great channel on Power Automate. Shout out to Matt. Hundreds of videos on Power Automate. But also getting their hands on these tools as well. And I think there's an approach that Microsoft have, which is called App in a Day. And that is a way that you can run a structured day workshop and actually get people building things with the Power Platform very quickly. And they start to see that by the end of the day, they've built something useful without necessarily being a coder, or they may be as well, but they've been very productive, and it gives them a little taste of what's possible. And I think that really starts to engage people and start to get them interested in learning more.
I think one of the greatest ways of getting people engaged is user experience.
Yeah.
Because I think the user experience of using whatever you build in Power Platform is always far and away better than just plugging data into a sheet and or whatever it is that people are doing. And then being able to share user experience in whatever format, whether it's an app that you can share with colleagues, etc. That's the best way.
There's a word that I made up, so please bear with me. But we're in a phase of redigitization right now. That's the word. Okay. I actually looked it up. It doesn't exist. But we've gone
Now
through.
it does.
Yeah, well, now it does. Like transmogrification, right? But we've gone through this process of digital transformation where many years ago people were taking data on bits of paper and going, "Oh my gosh, spreadsheets. Oh, that is the way of the future." And yeah, we're doing that. Cool, awesome. And then some clever Joe decided to put that data inside a PowerPoint presentation to make a proposal. Cool, whatever, right? All we're doing is redigitizing the way we do things. And a chap called James Phillip, I think Mike Hartley poked fun at me once, called James Phillips came up with this thing called the digital feedback loop. And as much as everyone hates the concept, it's true, because all we're doing is regurgitating transformation again and again and again. And it just so happens we're past the era of the spreadsheet. We're past the era of non-centralized data. I mean, look what happened to some of the medical records in a certain business in the UK. 15,000 COVID records were lost. Why? Because the data was not respected. So Power Platform comes down to data, and a spreadsheet is not a database. I hate to say it, and if you think it's one, I'm sorry. So we're moving out of the age of spreadsheets into this concept of centralized data that's been microserviced up to the level of the automation in the app. I hope that makes sense.
I fully agree. And in that sphere, I'm going to basically hand it off to Carl Cookson, who's got a question.
Yeah, I think we should get Chris off data because it will be there for a while if we don't.
Well, nobody's asked the licensing question, so.
It's a great question for Rashid in the chat.
God.
And they ask about whether we see low code and no code one day replacing pro code.
No, never.
Yeah, it's a good question, I think. But so much of the things that I do now with the Power Platform that I didn't used to be able to do, things have moved on so much even in the last 5 years. I can build 80-90% of what I need to build normally without writing code, but there's generally some business requirements somewhere where somebody needs something special, they need something to work in a certain way, where you have to end up using code. I think you absolutely can build solutions without using code, but there's always a place for them in my experience.
It's like the Lego analogy.
Yeah,
right?
certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the missing brick.
You can never get past the need for somebody who can write something from scratch, and there's a certain elegance and beauty in it, and the fact that you can create something from nothing. And I've always admired that, and the fact that look at people that are creating these custom components. Honestly, if I could write one of those, I would, because it's amazing. I mean, I look at folks like building these little digital bricks that are getting reused in the components store, and I see people's solutions that are using these. And it's a wonder to me that Microsoft, have not incorporated some of these as a standard product inside Power Apps, Canvas apps. But there's so much more. I mean, look at the concept of using Power Automate, microservicing, that kind of very basic level of procode inside Power Automate. Goodness me, I mean, PVA.
Yeah.
Another example is it's endless. So procode, people that can write code, number one, I'm jealous. Number two, it will never go away, ever.
They're like the pioneers, right?
Yeah.
Like when you look at what the pro coders are doing, it's like the first people to ever try drinking cow's milk, and you're like, that was risky, right?
Why would you do that?
I just took this out of an animal, and I just thought, I wonder what that tastes
You
like.
could have said a pigeon or something.
A pigeon.
I
I don't think many people drink pigeon milk.
don't know. I've never tried.
I think one thing that I'm seeing, which I think is very interesting, from my perspective, is around the components, which is where you can build user interface components in what's called Power Apps Component Framework. And that's custom user interface components, which quite commonly come up on projects now. You need some kind of custom user interface. And this is absolutely where your devs come in and they get to build some nice, cool stuff, It makes it interesting for them. it provides functionality for the organization. So I think that's a really, that's another valuable area, which is a growth area for me.
Totally, man. Anything reusable. I'm sorry, I know there's a question. Sorry.
So I'm gonna hand it over to Sarah.
Yes. Okay. So I have a question from the chat. It says, do you think that low code is only good for generic apps, which aren't that complex and with a lot of detailed logic, or are they more like a Swiss knife?
Okay. So this is where it starts getting into that boundary of like, and yeah, I'm probably going to say something I don't mean. So bear with me.
Bryce.
What I found is that when looking at the different, I don't like the word app, so let's abolish that. When looking at solutions, right, it's never just an app. It's always bigger than that. There's always data solutions. I know what she's asking. Yeah.
The thing is, like in the Power Platform, it's not just an app, but the question is around an app because it's a different answer for PVA. And we'll get to that when.
So something that's visible on your device, if you want to call it that, fine, we'll call it an app. I think that a lot of the time when making comparisons between tools like React, Mendix, OutSystems, Salesforce, whatever, you can compare as much as you want. But at that point, you're comparing an app making tool to an app making tool in Canvas apps. Our platform is all about the connectors. Let's just put it that way. So what I think is that with Canvas apps, you can do some very complicated things with it, but then you're turning it into an object-oriented programming suite. I've seen lines of power effects massively long. If you're okay to manage that, good on you. You can build it. Whether you should or not is another different story. So I'm going to leave it at that.
I fully agree. Not because you can, because you should.
And this is what I was going to say. It's use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
You're not going to use Power Apps to build software to run an aircraft. That would be problematic, I think. So use the right tool for the right thing. That's what I'm all about as well. If you can build something that's very functional and useful very quickly, Power Platform is a great choice, but it's not for everything.
No.
It doesn't suit every scenario, I would say.
Yeah, I fully agree.
I don't really have anything to add on that.
We have a question from
Viv?
Yes, there's another question kind of from the other side. How is it that we get the procode people to accept Power Platform and see the tools there as a higher value, or maybe equal enough value to the tools that they're used to or are using daily?
The thing is,
Good question.
the thing is, I think we kind of talked about that a little bit before in terms of business value.
Yeah.
Like if you actually show the value, like when I used to develop, when I used to build and actually spend ages of time, of course, most of the time is spent understanding the requirement and then writing pseudocode and then actually coding and then testing, etc. But cutting all that time down and actually building an app that's going to do the exact same thing that I needed, ruling out like saving me time. That's actually one of the best values. Explaining that to them, showing them that capability, and also if for me as a dev, understanding what it's made up of actually kind of helped translate it for me, understanding that it's really just a higher level of what's underneath the hood, like a lot of Azure components. You know what I mean, though? It's kind of like, for me, I like to pick things apart. And if you pick things apart and understand it, then you're more likely to adopt it.
I don't think that I think that there seems to be this kind of idea that there's some snobbery from the pro developers that don't.
Do you think that still exists?
I know. I don't think it ever existed. I think for the most part, they're probably happy that the majority of people are just getting on and doing stuff for themselves and not coming to them with easily solved problems. And I think most pro developers are focused towards user experience. I think they actually want to make something that works better for the people that are going to use it.
I've seen something different.
You've seen some stuff.
Yeah. Again, I feel like we're getting tied up in the app layer. Like, when I think about somebody who likes to write code, and I think about DBAs and things like that. I remember building interface data structures, hammering out connection strings many moons ago. Like, as somebody that wrote code, my biggest challenge was actually the data side of things. Like, the app intelligence was a byproduct of the data. So actually, I think the question probably I would ask is, how are you getting other people, or how are you getting the more sort of complicated data out of things like Excel into places like Dataverse and proving to people that can write procode that Dataverse is a viable data storage facility, not just SQL or Cosmos. But I think like once you get that right, then you can start looking up the layer of the apps and saying, hey, model-driven apps is a viable product because we're using Dataverse, and I can write plugins. Canvas apps is a viable product. You know, how does this all snap together? So again, I feel like the app part is fine, but it's around like, you know, the data structure. I want to prove to people that Dataverse is probably the best relational data storage facility I've ever used.
I think that's definitely one of the challenges,
Yeah.
definitely data. But I also have seen in my experience that people who really like to use, like, you went still for some reason Windows Forms. I do not know why I don't have it. They want to, and they're really addicted to it. People who are really addicted to only using, for example, Azure Bot Framework or anything like that, they don't think anything else is valid. And it, for me, it's a question of, have you actually tried?
I think there's a place for everyone, right?
Yeah.
There is.
You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to use Power Platform. You know, carry on doing whatever you want to do.
I just want people to be open, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Be open to using different tools. No, certainly. And I think, you know, we talked about productivity gains and things like that that you get from using some of these tools. But you know, there's plenty of work for everybody, and I think that's part of the purpose of the Power Platform. Is there has been a skill shortage for as long as I have been in IT.
Yep.
You know, so 20 odd years. You know, I'm waiting for the no, you're not that old, but. But yeah, with what Microsoft is trying to do is open up app building and functionality building, more than just apps, I should say, it's a platform, to a much wider audience. People that are non-technical, that know a bit of technical stuff. You know, those power users in Excel that write loads of formulas and things like that. And it opens up building functionality to many, many more people, which is ultimately what businesses need.
So I have one last question for a wrap up. So we're basically building all this stuff and we're working together, fusion teams, yay, and all that. But the other side of it is IT.
Yeah.
Like the IT department.
Why would you bring this up with 3 minutes to go?
Can I just say, we also have another session later on at 4 p.m. when we're talking about very similar topics. So if you have questions and we don't get to them, do come to that session. But let's talk about IT and their place.
I'm going to try my level best.
In 2 minutes.
It's a very simple phrase that Ryan Cunningham said.
It's my favorite.
Better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. People in your business are going to do stuff whether you like it or not. It's happening.
Say it slowly.
Better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know.
I think we should say it again.
Better a governed free market you know than a black market you don't know. People in your business are building stuff whether you know it or not. Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's happening. All right. So at least if you give them a platform to build on, if you give them the digital bricks and you put around the baby gates and you set up the governance, digital guardrails at least, then people can build things safely in a safe place. That is governance in 1 minute.
Okay, great, lovely. You did well. Okay, so any last words?
I was just going to set fire to the table and shout governance and run out.
Get on the table, man.
No,
it's all good.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Let's see. I think for me, I would really focus, if you've not tried out any of the Power Platform, maybe you're from a developer background, is, you know, just go out there and learn some stuff, watch some videos, see how productive you can be.
Totally. All right.
Any last words for you?
Oh, I've got loads, but you know.
Any quick last.
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. We really appreciate the time. Thank you to the moderators and to the Microsoft team for having us. Yeah. Massive appreciation.
Okay, and to be honest, my last words are, it's literally what Bib said. It's really all about trying new things. The Power Platform is made for everyone. It's made for procode. It's just made for everyone. And it's a really good platform with things that are not just Power Apps, but you also have other modules as well, which will enhance and reduce the amount of effort that you have to put into development and allow you to get back to doing what you want to do. Fun, spending time outside, enjoying life, right? So try it. That's all, like, for me, just try. But to be honest, thank you very much for joining our session. And as Bib said, we have another one.